Stripes. I'm Ryan Guillory.
And I'm Michael Moran, and we'll start tonight with the result of the play from our last episode. So we have 12 seconds left in the fourth quarter. A is trailing 21-17. A has the ball, second and goal at the B8. A81 gets set while A27 is in motion. The line judge throws a flag. A12 completes a pass to the B2 with 8 seconds on the clock at the time of the whistle. So we asked you for your ruling, both high school and college. And in high school, this is going to be an illegal shift. It's going to be treated as a live ball foul. And if the penalty is accepted, which most likely it would be, A is going to be penalized 5 yards from the previous spot. We'll have second and goal from the B13. And added this year, B has the option to start the clock on the snap, but likely they'll decline to do so. Now in college, this is going to be an illegal shift that converts to a false start. So we'll have second and goal from the B13. If the clock were running in this scenario, we'd have a 10-second runoff, and then we would remove that from the game clock. So there were 12 seconds when this play started. So we would go back to 2 seconds with the 10-second runoff, and our signal would start the clock there. Now the A's coach could prevent the 10-second runoff with a timeout if they had one. And of course, if the clock were not running, there is no 10-second runoff in this case.
Thanks, Michael. This week we're fortunate enough to be joined by National Championship umpire Ross Hayden. But before we get there, we have something new this week where we'd like to highlight a local sponsor. Okay, it's time to announce a new partner we have on the podcast, Get Right Physical Therapy. Get Right Physical Therapy is owned by our very own Andrew McClure, who works high school games in Indiana and is a deep wing in the Heartland Collegiate Athletic Conference. Andrew has almost a decade of experience in the world of ortho and sports med physical therapy and wants to help all of us feel as good as possible going into the 2022 season. If you've missed games due to injury or felt your performance has been affected by nagging pain, the season's coming up soon, and now is the time to work on your body to make sure you have as healthy and high-performing season as possible.
And right now, Get Right Physical Therapy is offering a special preseason package for football officials. Whether you have a shoulder that hurts when you kill the clock, or a knee that bothers you when you turn a run, or you're interested in just getting into better physical shape, Andrew should be your go-to resource to get physically prepared for the season. Personally, I tweaked my hamstring during a middle school game a few seasons ago, and I wasn't sure if I could even get to the weekend. I called Andrew, and he quickly identified the strain, the injury. He got me started on some exercises to help heal it, and I had strained this hamstring on a Monday. I actually was working the field by Friday.
Andrew's located in Carmel for in-person visits, and he can also do virtual visits if you're in Indiana, but don't live in the Indianapolis area. He's offering a special preseason football officials package to address new or old injuries you have. The package includes a movement screen, soft tissue work, and dry needling to help soft tissue injuries, along with progressive corrective exercises to help strengthen the area and keep the pain from coming back. You do not need a physician referral for PT in Indiana, so you can call or email him directly to set up your first visit. Send an email to andrew@getrightphysicaltherapy.com. That's andrew@getrightphysicaltherapy.com, or on Instagram at all one word at getrightpt.
And now's the time to take care of your body. You don't want to start the season at less than 100%, so get in touch with him today. Physical readiness is an integral part of performing to your fullest potential, so get in touch with him, again, by emailing him at andrew@getrightphysicaltherapy.com. We're really happy to partner with Get Right Physical Therapy on our podcast, and we think he can be a great asset to the physical health of our officiating community.
We received a great question from a friend and listener this week, our friend Tom, asking about the use of video review in today's game. Now, we're not talking about instant replay, but specifically how you can use film to study and prepare for your next game and to learn from your last game. We're fortunate today to be joined by a fellow official from Indiana, an umpire in the Heartland Collegiate Athletic Conference, Ross Hayden. Ross, welcome to the show, and I'll let Michael add a few words as well.
I've known Ross for a couple of years now. Ross, we're glad to have you. In my opinion, one of the most well-prepared officials. When you step on the field, he's always ready to go. Ross is on my crew in the Heartland, and I think he always does a great job of looking at film from the previous week. He's always our first go-to guy to get after it and find just always ways to improve watching video. So, Ross, thanks for joining us today.
No, thanks for having me, guys. I really do appreciate it, and looking forward to talking about film review tonight.
Yeah. Again, Ross, thanks for being with us, and I echo everything that Michael said there. So we're going to again, talk a little bit about how you can use film to improve from week to week, make yourself better individually and as a crew. So perhaps the broadest question would be, we'll sort of do a roundtable of this, but we'll start with you, Ross. What is your routine in terms of, do you look at film on the same day every week? Is there a time that you set aside for that? What's your typical routine for reviewing film?
So my routine is probably a little bit unique. I am going to typically I'm not going to watch film the day of. So working high school football and college, obviously 2 sets of game film to review. So what I will go out work Friday night. We'll go to the game Saturday. If there was something particularly controversial or something we as a crew want to look at, we will try to find a live stream. Most of these small colleges have live streams now where you can go, and if you know approximately what quarter or maybe something position on the field, something that sparks it, you can go and see, hey, did we miss something? Besides that, I don't tend to watch a lot of film Saturdays for the games, and I'm not really looking until that Sunday. And we're really lucky in the Heartland and the MSFA. We are getting our film Sunday afternoons at the latest through Huddle. So once that Huddle film comes in, I try to I do my best to break away and try to at least get all the penalties. And most of the teams fill out. There's some information in Huddle that you can actually filter on things to look for certain plays with penalties. And can I find all the penalties and at least get that created on Sunday and then start watching the film? Some guys, it's a kind of a hot button issue, but some guys love the live stream. I think the live stream is good for some things. I think Huddle is best for breaking down the actual film, because that live stream, as an umpire, it doesn't give me the end zone shot, and that's kind of what I'm looking at. That's where I'm probably going to pick up more stuff. But the live stream does have its advantages because you can actually see how your crew's moving, how your ball mechanics work, how you dead ball officiate. Because Huddle, it's the play and then it's done. So I think it's really a union of the two. But unfortunately, at our level, we don't have we don't have Exos Thundercloud that knits it all together for us. So we, sometimes we got to bounce around. But I try to have at least the penalties and everything put together Sunday, and then I did a terrible job last year because I just had some issues accessing Google Docs. But this year, going to at least keep a record with a spreadsheet and just, hey, go in and put in the penalties and then just start from play one and go through and watch. I'll go through and I'll watch, what I'm doing, or I look at something and, hey, is this something that the crew wants to look at? I'm not looking to call people out, but I'm looking, hey, take a look at this play. What do we think? And try and be an active participant in getting all that film together. And typically, I like to get that done by Tuesday at the latest. Can I get that film broken down? Friday nights, it's a little bit different. The film sometimes it gets in a little bit late, but for Friday nights, try to at least look at every penalty, every score, every try, and every change of possession play. Just kind of the bigger ones. And again, if there's a play that sticks out of my mind, can I find that play to look at? And that's kind of more I just slot it in as I get time, so that maybe stretches into Wednesday.
Okay.
So Ross, when you say you've got a particular play that sticks in your mind, are you like writing it down? You're in the middle of the field, so it's hard. Do you write it down, or is that a mental note? You're just like, I was halfway through the third quarter. What do you do there?
Mostly it's been a mental note. Probably should make better use of crew communications to, if I can get to my wing officials who have the penalty report personnel, if you will, following them and get it written down, that might be better. I know some guys use on the field, they'll take just like a mini recorder, but I think some people kind of frown upon that. I just typically go by, okay, somewhere in the second, third quarter. And if I can generally remember, I generally have a good spatial awareness, like, okay, was it down at the end zone? Was it on a particular hash? And I can kind of, okay, they're there. Okay, wasn't that play? Skip ahead, find the next spot where it's there. So for me, I'm mostly taking a mental note.
I like what you said about the live streams too, Ross. We're fortunate with the small colleges. A lot of times you can just Google the school website, click on football, and you can find it. And it's up for a little while. You can find it. And I noticed for Friday nights, a lot of high schools they're throwing them on YouTube now. So folks out there listening, if you're wanting to find kind of a long shot or a live stream for dead ball stuff, check out YouTube because sometimes you can find your schools posting them there too. So.
Michael, we started talking about film routines, and Ross went through his. I suspect that varies a lot from person to person, yet it can still be beneficial, even if we're not all doing the same thing, because it's, as with everything else, you have to sort of adapt it to your personality and your style. So what's your general routine, Michael, for film review?
Last year on Saturdays, it was kind of my job to find the live stream. So kind of keying off of what we just talked about, I would try to get on there real quick and find that and just get the link out to the crew. And then, like I said, Ross was the one putting the Google Doc together for Saturdays, which was always handy. I got a little better at that midway through the season. Friday nights, Ryan, you and I know we're trying to get film by coaches. Some of the coaches who are on it, we might get it Saturday. Sometimes it's Monday, and I totally get that. But I try to watch it as soon as I can and then just kind of be done with it because I don't want to linger on too long. But I would like to get better at what kind of Ross talked about. And I've noticed in some of the notes of our Friday night crew too, guys can watch plays and just see, a train wreck that happens or something out of the norm. I have a terrible habit of watching just my position again. It's like, okay, I'm watching my keys and I might watch just the same thing I saw from a different angle and I'm not expanding my views, and I need to do a better job of that.
Yeah, I think it's a constantly evolving process for all of us. The more film that we can watch, the better. The more we learn about how to do it. I think I'm pretty similar to both of you in terms of when I do it. As you'd said, Ross, we're really lucky in the Heartland and the Mid States how quickly we get film back. By the next day, it's there's going to be an email of every game that we could have possibly had. So I try to, when I can, watch some of that Sunday afternoon, Sunday evening. Started going through as you do, Ross. First looking for penalties, and then there's always those one or two plays that just stick in your head after the game. And you may not have the time, but I think, as you said, you just always remember those where they were on the field, who had the ball, and you can kind of find those fairly easily if you're looking at huddle. If you've got that sideline view, it's a little bit different, but you can again kind of piece it together there. Well, with high school, it seems like we're getting a little better every year how quickly we get it, but it's not quite as fast typically as the college film. So if we have it by Monday, I try to watch it then. But admittedly, I put a lot more time into watching the college game than the high school game, only because I we only have so many hours in a week, and you have to make priorities there. And I do watch the high school film, just not as in depth maybe as the college myself.
College games are longer too, right?
There's more plays.
There you go.
But one thing we haven't touched on yet, we've just been talking about the review of the film. Typically by Wednesday or Thursday at the latest, I'm trying to at least, especially early in the season, trying to scout teams. In high school, it's kind of hard to do. Coaches tend to be a little bit more stingy about sharing out film because they think there's some grand conspiracy, but there isn't, if any coaches are out there listening. But so it's kind of hard to do in high school unless you've already had the team. But in college, you have that luxury. At least the first time around you're seeing a team. In conference play, it might be a little different because you might have seen the team before, so you're maybe a little bit more aware of what they're trying to do and what to watch out for. But for some of those interconference games, or if you get a playoff assignment, you got film. Always try to look at the offense, look at the defense. I'm looking at their punt formation. Are they doing anything screwy? Are they doing anything that I'm going to want to talk about? Is there anything I need to let my short wings know? I'm not looking for number so and so is gotta watch out for him. That's not you don't go headhunt like that. I'm not looking for this person is probably going to be my holder. coaches do that enough in the pregame conference. Oh, so and so number does this, and it's just like, coach, thank you, I appreciate it. If I see it, we'll call it. But I'm looking for, what type of offense do they run? Are they power? Are they inside zone? Are they outside zone? Do they like to stretch the edge? Do they spread them out? Do they run RPO? RPO is huge, and it's complicated for everybody because, as an umpire, I read run initially because I got linemen coming out at me, but then the quarterback pops up. I have to try to get to the line, but the linemen are, they're encroaching on my space, and the short wings need to be aware and help with an eligible downfield, because if the quarterback holds that ball, a half second longer than he should, probably someone's downfield where they shouldn't be. So I don't watch the single guys out. I'm looking at what are they doing offensively? What are they doing defensively? Do they have a nose tackle? Am I going to be kind of shading a little bit to get a better view of the ball for my pre-snap? Do they blitz a lot? Am I going to need to be aware on passing downs? Hey, they blitz a lot, so antennas go up. I mean, most of the times, if there's a hole in a pass play, it's somebody blitzing or someone looping. Never to single out players for penalties, but just what do they do, just so that I'm not surprised when they do something that I could have caught if I was watching film.
I think that's a useful discussion, since we cover a lot of different positions among the three of us, between line of scrimmage, deep wing, umpire, at the college level. So Ross, I suppose that as from an umpire's perspective, those are the things you're looking at: those nose tackles, D tackles, I guess guard, center guard. I suppose those typically are pretty standard in terms of what you're looking at, but anything that jumps out to you there when you're looking at them normally?
Not in particular. I do remember one time we had a playoff game at Berry College, and we got film, and I watched it, and the first thing that jumped out to me were these splits were like 4 feet. Like the guard would be 6 inches to the center, 4 feet, but it wasn't like they were trying to run a veer or anything. It's just that's how they taught their inside blocking zone to get the double teams up to the backers quicker. And it is pretty standard. I mean, it's the guards, the center, it's the guard. They're all going to be in the same spot every time. But, I also try to pick up on, do I notice any sort of passing combinations as far as route combinations, screens, things of that nature? Does their quarterback like to scramble? Because that's going to be big for me as an umpire, because if we're down 5 at the big 5 going in and my wings are at the goal line, and deeps are at the pylons, I gotta get to that. I have to be more aware. This guy likes the scramble. I gotta get to the line of scrimmage, because if he breaks pocket and he's still looking to throw, my responsibility is I need to know where he is when he releases that ball. So it's more. It is a lot of guard, center, guard, but it's also more of a holistic approach to see. Are they going to be bouncing outside? Am I going to need to hang back, watch as those blocks develop, or am I going to need to quickly transition to point of attack because they run power and that guard, he pulls, so I need to shift my focus to the strong side, run side.
Michael, I guess same question for you. And I'll sort of think of this in sort of two types of film watching. So we're watching film from our last game, and we're trying to look for penalties. Maybe if we miss something, we're out of position, how we can get better, looking at that. But then also, as Ross was just talking about, scouting for our next game, what we can pick up on there. So I know between Friday nights and Saturdays, you're working at two different spots, line of scrimmage Friday nights and then deep wing on Saturday. When you're scouting, and you can take this in two steps, high school and then college, what are you looking for? What stands out for you, A, on the line of scrimmage on Friday nights, and then B, for deep wing on Saturdays?
I think that when I first got started, I was always anxious to look at film and see what can I do better. And then it wasn't until a couple of years in, I thought, I hadn't seen a single high school repeat in terms of a game that I'd had. I thought, I'm going into these games surprised, just kind of reacting to the plays. And like Ross talked about, it's so critical now to know schemes and to know who's going where, whether it's a blocking scheme or do they run, on a Friday night, you might be facing a wing tee, and then on a Saturday, you've got a team that runs 5 wide, and it's two totally different styles of offense. So I can think to a playoff game Ross and I had last year. We were fortunate enough to get film ahead of time, and I watched about 2 games of a particular team and started to learn, okay, I don't remember the number, but 6, whatever it was, their top receiver. I looked at his stats. He's their top receiver, and in different formations where when he was over here by himself, he's running this route. When he went in motion, he, one out of 3 times he was doing this, and you just start planning that in your head. Then you can start putting together with your pre-snap routine. There's a throwback to an earlier episode, pre-snap routines. But you can put in your pre-snap your down and distance and your formation and say, okay, based upon this, I can expect this to happen. I look at Friday nights by Wednesday. I try to get that out to our group. Ryan and I scout our sidelines for our teams, and I get that out with their top runner, their top passer, what they like to do on offense. And then I'm trying to look at Saturday ahead of time by Thursday. I try to leave Fridays open to just kind of relax and prepare for Friday night's game. Just stay mentally free so you're not getting bogged down. It's kind of like cramming before a test. It doesn't really do you any good. That's just me.
Yeah, something you mentioned that's really good, especially for high schools, especially because we don't have access to film, and even these smaller schools, it's not going to work as well. But if you can find box scores or max preps and look at statistics,
yep,
and be able to see, hey, this team throws the ball a lot. Now they were down a bunch, so that might not be their identity. They were just trying to catch up, or hey, they run the ball a lot, or they don't have many completions. So you can just kind of get a feel, and everything we're talking about, it's preparation, but I think there's a fine line between being prepared and then overanalyzing and being locked into, oh, this is what's going to happen this play, and then it doesn't. It's more of a even if you can get like a half second of, okay, I was ready for that. It's about getting that advantage to be okay. This is what's like Moran said. It's 3rd and long. Okay, 7's in single coverage. He might be running that dig. Oh, he ran the dig, and just being ready and having your eyes in the right spot a little bit sooner. You obviously don't want to get locked in on something happening, but if be able to flow and adapt and just roll with it. But being prepared and having a mental knowledge of, okay, this is what's probably going to happen. Oh, it didn't. Well, it's okay. I'm still, because you're never leaving your key. You're never looking where you shouldn't be. But they just did something that was a little deviation from the expectation.
Yeah, I think it's not necessarily to get yourself locked in expecting play after play to go a certain way or to be scripted, but it's to, I think, as both of you have mentioned, it's about knowing tendencies going in. Because my first few years in high school, I had no idea what any team was ever going to run, and it doesn't change the way that I officiate, but it's harder, I guess, to predict sometimes. As Michael said, when you've got that wing T offense, okay, well, that tells me to be on the guard, be a little bit slower on the whistle, things I'm going to have to look for when I'm out there. But as you mentioned, Ross, Max Preps is a really good tool that I think Michael and I both use because, quite frankly, sometimes it's the only thing we can find. You get the highlight films that are 2.5 to 3 minutes, and you can see some formation tendencies and that kind of thing there. You can kind of tell if they throw it a lot, if it's a running team, any funky formations. But those stats give you a lot too. Is it going to be run heavy, pass heavy, or I guess more accurately, do they tend to be more run heavy or pass heavy? Doesn't necessarily mean what they're going to do this Friday. But what are their tendencies? What might we expect from them? With Huddle, obviously, and with our system, we're able to get a lot of film for Saturdays. So from there, I know we've talked about deep wing, we've talked about umpire, what you're looking at. For me on the line of scrimmage, when I'm looking ahead, I try to look, first of all, where are the tackles lining up? Right, because formation is going to be one of the things that I'm going to have to look at. So if there's a team where one or both tackles tends to want to cheat back, I'll want to talk to them before the game just to try to fix that so it's not a problem for that game. There's certainly ways to go about that, but you can sort of do that looking in the first quarter and late in the fourth. They're not going to be legal in the first and late in the fourth, and then cheat in the second and third, and then make themselves legal again come the fourth quarter. So you can pick up on that stuff fairly easily there. But like as both of you said, you can sort of pick up on formations in certain plays as well. I had a game last year where there was a team that if they weren't running, they were going to come out 5 wide. And if they had 5 wide, the quarterback was not taking off. It would be whichever side trips were to, the inside guy would take a step back, he'd catch a screen, and the 2 guys in front of him would block. And their first 2 or 3 series, every play was that screen, just whichever side the trips were to, that's where the play was going. So, we were able to pick up on that and kind of expect that. So I think it's just, that one we got lucky because we kind of could tell, at least for a while, what every play was going to be. But that's rare, as you said. So it's about knowing tendencies and being prepared for certain types of plays, if not the play itself.
I have found a bit of a hack with Huddle, for at least for Friday nights. If you know the team, you can go into Huddle and just search the team. I don't know if you guys have ever done this, but you can go and just find the team and look at highlights from their previous week or previous couple weeks. And at least, if they've had some good plays, you can see the plays that might be working. And then if you find like their top rusher, their top receiver, whatever, you can usually find that player on Huddle. And sometimes those guys have highlight reels too that you can watch and see what they're doing too. So if you have trouble getting a film from a school or something like that, you can kind of backdoor your way in through Huddle and just find highlights and stuff from teams and players. And that kind of gets you where you need to go too.
Are there any challenges or limitations that you found, Ross, in trying to review film, other than, I guess, accessing the film, but any other challenges that you've had to deal with?
And it's a byproduct of the level that we're officiating. Mostly is sometimes, especially in high school, you might get a camera angle,
right?
And that's it. So it's like, well, I want to see, does this penalty show up on film? It might not.
Right.
And it's easy to dwell on, and then at that point think, well, what was I right? And I think, at a certain point you just gotta let it go and you say, look, I called what I called, and I can't tell from the film if it was right or it was wrong. And in college, it's typically better. We'll get end zone and a sideline. We will also get you can find a live feed. So, some schools send you. I've had this a few times where you get both end zones, so you get the offensive backfield and the defensive backfield on the same
Nice.
huddle cut, which is nice because a hold looks like a hold from my vantage point, but from the reverse angle, maybe it didn't. So the challenge is simply the byproduct of the resources that are available to the schools that are doing the film, and at a certain point you just accept it and you move on. Your call may not show up well. I remember this was last fall. I was a back judge, if you can believe it, and it was it was the second game of the season. And at the end of the half, I had what I thought was a pretty spectacular play. The ball was getting bounced around, the same defender on the ground, and he finally secured it. And I came up with what I thought was a good kill the clock, strong point. We had IHSAA grader, IHSAA observer. Yeah, that's the word.
There you go.
And he said, hey, that was a good job. Went to go watch the film, and it was so grainy. Like I thought it was close. Maybe he did drop it. I can't tell. It's like, well, was I right or was I wrong? I don't know, but I looked confident. It looked like I stopped. I was watching, and I gave the right signals. But the limitation is, film doesn't lie, but sometimes film is silent.
Right.
It doesn't give you exactly what you're looking for. So the biggest limitation is, it is just the angles we get, and if our calls don't show up, we err on the side of, okay, that was my call, and I live with it.
That's a heck of a quote. Sometimes film is silent. That's awesome.
Yeah. No, I think that's a good point, Ross, in terms of the capabilities or the logistics of the film at different schools. I know typically all the colleges will have, as you said, sideline, the end zone view. Some of those end zone views are behind the kicking net. Sometimes there's a post or a pole right in front of or just to the side. So depending on how it's moving, some of that's going to be blocked out too. So, despite all the best efforts, there are limitations to film. It's just
or it's at like a 30-degree angle.
right, right.
Or one particular college that we all know has a Dutch angle on their end zone shot for no reason.
Yep.
Yep. But you deal with it and you do what you can with the film that you have. In doing with that there. Any other challenges that you've come across, Michael, other than, again, just acquiring the film?
I think you just try to be as resourceful as you can. And I think most coaches, if you just kind of ask, more than willing to help, especially if you kind of present, hey, I'm just trying to get better. I try to work through the crew chief when it comes to that too. I don't go out and do that on my own. I usually hit up my referee and say, hey, have we gotten film yet? But I'm trying to think. Saturdays we got all the film last year, and we're lucky with our huddle access. We get all of the Heartland games every week, so we can see all of them, which is really nice. But on Friday nights, I think last year we got film just from just about everybody. So
yeah, we've touched on this a little bit already, Ross. You mentioned Google Docs. I know a lot of people use that or some equivalent. Can you just sort of explain how you use Google Docs or what other communications you use to communicate with your crewmates about what you see on film, what you found?
Yeah. So the idea, we're gonna moving forward use a Google Sheet and just have every season kind of up there and just different games or different tabs and just huddle play number, quarter, if you know what quarter it is, and is it a foul? Is it a special play? Is it something we want to take a second look at as a crew and just kind of map it out? And so guys can go in, insert columns and add things, and you can have discussions there. Me and Moran and Nicholas will text during the week if for certain plays. I'll text other guys on the crew if there are certain plays that might pertain to them. We have a running text chain with the crew during the season where we can talk about stuff. So it's really any and everything, but emails too. But we never call and talk to each other, which is kind of pretty standard for this day and age. But a lot of it occurs through the Google Sheets. Just going back and forth talking about, hey, here's what I saw. Well, here's what I saw, and then being able to kind of come together. And if there's something that we really want to honestly, if there's something that we just really kicked it and just got something really wrong, we bring it to, Saturday's pregame and we just talk through. It's like, hey, here's how we kicked it. What can we do to be better? What can we do to, cover this more? And sometimes the answer is, and I should back up. It's not necessarily always that, oh, we kicked it, but sometimes like, hey, this happened. It was weird. Can we do this any better?
Right.
If we talk to some other officials who have a little more clout than we do and they tell us how to do it, we'll bring that to the crew. But I remember one play in particular from last season. We had a play, just never thought it would happen, and on the field it felt like it took forever to put it together, and we got it right. But that next pregame we're like, okay, can we do this any better? And our conclusion was, no, we're just in a tough spot. It was a decently long field goal, and our short wing was on an island basically. It was just the way it worked out on a blocked field goal. So yeah, I think the communication aspect is big, and communicate any way you can get guys to respond. Sometimes is kind of the best way to do it.
Yeah, and Michael, I know that since you and Ross are on the same college crew, obviously your methods are what Ross just discussed. Can you talk about? I know we kind of do largely the same thing on our high school crew, but just how we use Google Sheets or Google Docs and text throughout the week, and in terms of what we saw on film, what we might want to address before the next game.
Yeah, I think it was JP who introduced the Google Doc idea on our high school crew, and I really like it. The benefit of it, and I don't have a visual for the folks at home, but the benefit is it's the third or fourth column. You can just kind of tag your initials and put a comment in there, and it's just a handy place to keep, I think, all the notes regarding that particular game. But we do something very similar of this is the play, this is what happened. It could have been a foul. I think we did the same thing, foul or mechanic, and who was watching where. And to Ross's point, the play he was just talking about, that can happen at any time. And the Google Doc's a great place to have that, because sometimes there's just gaps in coverage, right? Whether it's 5-man in high school or 7-man, or, if you're lucky enough to be working 8-man, there's just gaps in coverage. It just happens. And sometimes you get a play that is just deserving of its own rule or its own ruling or whatever. And you have to talk about it. And, now you know for next time.
Right.
That's all you can do.
Well, it's not just gaps in coverage. I mean, it's gaps in rules and mechanics sometimes too. When you get that play that's just no one could have thought of it,
Right.
5 years ago, 10 years ago, to have a rule or a mechanic for that scenario. And I think those are the ones where in the Google Docs we do have the most conversation, because it's all of us trying to figure out what the heck happened and how do you deal with it next time. Can it be better, as Ross said, or is it just one of those screwy plays where if it happens, you just piece it together as best you can, and fortunately, when you get it right, and that's great. And if you don't, then learn how to get it, how to handle it better for next time.
I think the benefit of the Google Doc is, we're all three of us here working Friday and Saturday, so you figure that's, I don't know, 300 something plays on a Friday and a Saturday, and you multiply that by 9-10 weeks, so 3,000 plays. So the idea of trying to remember all those plays and watch yourself improve, it's really handy, I don't know, to have 10, 12 plays that you're talking about, and you can look across the different weeks and see, okay, did we improve on this? Are we doing this better? Or do we keep stumbling the same way? And it's a great way to have a conversation piece as a crew and try to make your pregame specific.
Do you guys, with the Google Doc, I know the college games I've worked where we've had one, and the high school games as well, we sort of make a, noon on Tuesday or Wednesday morning rule for this is when we're done with that Google Doc for that game. You sort of like, as you mentioned with film, you move on from the past week at some point. You move on from the last game to the next one in terms of reviewing that film and talking about it through the docs.
I think it's, I mean, personally, I think it's totally fine to have that cutoff. I think on Saturdays, it's good to at least review some big stuff.
Sure.
But sometimes maybe on the third or fourth watch, you get something different. So I don't begrudge people who say, "Hey, I'm done with watching that film." Great, but I don't know. Sometimes I'll go back and I'll watch a game from earlier in the season if I got some time, and just mostly I'm watching for myself, and also saying, "Hey, I had a similar play this week. How did I do compared to the other time where I had a similar play?" So, I think I think maybe the question is, when do you stop breaking it down? I think Wednesday's totally fine, but I don't think you should ever, okay, I'm done with that film and never going back to it.
Sure.
Unless it was a particularly bad game, then okay, maybe you can get away with never going back to it, but at least take the lessons that you learned from it.
Yeah, I think it's a cumulative process. It's just at some point, as with everything, you have to focus on the upcoming game. And so just during that week, your focus might shift from looking back to, but yeah, over the season, obviously you can go back to that and certainly use that to improve. We've talked sort of globally, I guess, about how crews can handle plays better, how we can improve handling a certain play or a certain scenario that might come up in the future. Specifically for yourself, and you just mentioned this, Ross, as to how you can improve yourself. But what do you look at and what do you do with film in order to improve your work? Whether it was as a back judge on a Friday night or as an umpire on Saturday, what are you looking for and how do you incorporate that for your next game?
I think the biggest thing is, mechanically, am I sound? Am I moving well? As an umpire, and when I was a back judge, and I will be an umpire on Friday nights this fall. I'm moving back to my natural position. Good for everybody. But I'm looking for, specifically for my position, in any position, do I move with a purpose, or am I just moving around to move around? Also seeing, how well do I move? And honestly, one of the things that I was looking at last year, how do I look on film, and not, mechanically, but physically? How do I look? And that's not something you can really change in a season, but that can be something to be like, oh wow, I did not think I looked like that, and start making changes in that regard. But so I'm looking at positioning, I'm looking at my movement in particular. I'm looking at, are my eyes in the right place? The bill of the hat's a good indicator for that. Am I closing down well? How's the dead ball officiating if we get enough of the end of the play or getting some live stream? And also, the last thing is, are my calls good calls? Was that a good hold, or was that marginal? Could I have helped, or should I have waited a little bit longer? And honestly, I'm looking for things to improve on. So I'm looking for what I did wrong. It's okay to be like, oh, I did well in that play, but when I'm looking, I'm probably looking with a overly critical eye, just to what can I get better at? What can I do to differentiate myself, from other umpires in the Heartland, or other umpires who, as I hopefully, Lord willing, move up in advance? What can I do to differentiate myself? And I heard someone once told this story, and I forget what it was, and basically the gist of it is, anyone could come down out of the stands and get in your position. And about 80% of the time, maybe not mechanically, but as far as calls, 80% of the time, 85%, they can see when it's a hold. They can see when it's DPI. There's always going to be those obvious things. You're on the field because you're there to get the other 20 to 15% that they're not going to get. And so it's each game, each week, each season, can I close and squeeze that percentage so that, I'm going to get as much as I can that the guy in the stands isn't going to get.
Right.
So like I said, I probably a little overly critical, but in order to improve, you got to be honest and self-reflective.
Sure.
These are some good nuggets
Michael,
tonight. Some good nuggets.
Yeah.
I hope folks are picking these up, man.
No, that's very good. Michael, anything differently that you look at on film to incorporate into helping yourself improve?
I would echo Ross's comments. I think watching yourself, watching how you move, and Ross even hit, physical appearance is a big one nowadays. A lot more games are being televised, so it's always important that we present the right product on the field, right? We want to look the part and be the part, because these players are, fantastic athletes today, and we need to be able to keep up with them. So.
Yeah, I think in addition to all that, and Ross, you hit on this, I think it's fine to be overly critical in terms of looking at yourself. You're not really benefiting from film if you're looking for 100 plays to say, oh, I did okay on that one. I was okay there. Good job on this one. It's those ones where they're either marginal, or maybe we could have been in a better position. Maybe if we would have been in a slightly different position, we would have seen something, had a better view. It's those that's how you improve, right? When you are critical, when you look for those steps you can take the next time you have that play, that formation, that type of an athlete coming at you, for whether it's a blitz coming up, going down the middle, whether I've got a screen pass coming at me, how do I position myself to see everything that's happening? And if you're not being critical of yourself, then film's not terribly useful for you in terms of improvement. But that's one big way for us to get better, is to look at film, see what can be improved on, and incorporate that the next game, next week, next month, as we go forward.
Yeah, film is great for helping you. We hear guys talk about owning your calls, loving your calls. Film helps you own your calls. I've been getting more into, not necessarily self-help, but like leadership books and books by Joshua Metcalf, talking about the process and training, and the drive to do that before you even get the chance to actually shine on the bright lights. And there's a book out there by a former Navy SEAL named Jocko Willink called Extreme Ownership. And one of the basic principles of the SEALs teams is that extreme ownership. And he's got a great story that I'm not going to spoil, but being able to essentially, the buck stops here. If I missed a call, I missed the call. Me trying to hem and haw and say, well, my vision might have been blocked off, or, well, I was in good position, but then this happened. No, if you missed it, you missed it. Be better. Stop saying what made me make the wrong call and say, what can I do next time to make sure I don't make the same mistake again?
That's good stuff. Well, Ross, thank you for joining us. Thank you for all the, as Michael said, all the good nuggets and all the insight that you provided for this. I think this is going to be helpful, hopefully, to our listeners in terms of how they can approach film, how they can use that to improve going forward, week 1 to week 10, and hopefully for many beyond into the postseason as well this year.
No, thank you guys for having me. I think it's great what you're doing. I think it's a good way to reach out to more people who may be interested in officiating, or people who are and are working on their craft. We got 6 weeks, I think, till high school football kicks off, and we have another 9 or 10. 8 if you're lucky to get the week 0 game. But yeah, so let's keep working, and I think it's attributed to Vince Lombardi. Whether he said it or not is up for debate, but supposedly told the Packers, gentlemen, we will pursue perfection, knowing we shall never attain it, but in the pursuit of perfection, we will obtain excellence. So let's pursue perfection, and somewhere along the way, maybe we'll actually get good at this.
That's excellent. Thanks again, Ross. We appreciate you being here.
Thanks, guys.
Thank you for joining us once again for this episode of Learn Your Stripes. As always, we'll leave you with a play to consider.
Okay, 1st and 10 from the A35. QB A12 takes a snap from the shotgun, rolls to his right, hands the ball off to receiver A87, who's running back to the left to execute a reverse. A87 is looking to pass and is about to be sacked when he heaves the ball towards the sideline and out of bounds. The ball lands 2 yards beyond the sideline at the A39. What's the foul, if any? What's the enforcement? Down and distance? What is the clock status? And again, we're looking for both high school and college.
We'll discuss that play at the start of the next episode. In the meantime, if you want to let us know what your ruling would be, or if you have any questions or feel we made a mistake, please email us at learnyourstripes@gmail.com. You can also contact us at learnyourstripes@gmail.com if you're interested in sponsoring an episode or advertising on the show. You can find us on your app of choice or obtain episodes at learnyourstripespodcast.com. Please also follow us on Facebook at Learn Your Stripes Podcast, on Instagram at the same name, and on Twitter at LYS_podcast. If you enjoy the podcast, please tell your friends and rate us 5 stars and leave a review on your app of choice. We'll see you back here soon. In the meantime, keep learning your stripes.
Thank you, everyone.